So our first speaker tonight is Adrian McDonald, and Adrian is a climate physicist with interdisciplinary background who conducts field-based research in Antarctica. He also, of course, is based here at the University of Canterbury, but he obtained his PhD from the University of Wales in Aberystwyth in 1997, after which he worked in various research posts before coming to New Zealand in 2001 to take up a role as lecturer in physics at the University of Canterbury. Adrian is currently the director of the Gateway Antarctica Centre and is also an associate professor in the School of Physical and Chemical Sciences at the University of Canterbury. He's also a member of the science leadership team of the Deep South National Science Challenge, a member of the International Commission of Polar Meteorology, the science discipline representative for New Zealand on the Scientific Committee on Solar Terrestrial Physics General Council, and a member of an expert group on operational meteorology in the Antarctic. He's also led the KO55 Atmospheric Physics Antarctic event in partnership with Antarctica New Zealand for over 10 years and has visited Antarctica on 13 separate trips. We're fortunate to have him out of the Antarctica tonight, to have him here, and without any further ado, Adrian.
I'd like to thank you very much for inviting me to talk today. It's a great honour. I'm going to talk generally about climate change over New Zealand and why we need to think about climate change in general. I will do some specific things on the Canterbury region and the Christchurch region. You can tell your life is complicated when you have 3 different insignia identifying your affiliation. So I'm connected to the University of Canterbury, the Gateway Antarctica Research Centre at Canterbury, and also to the Deep South National Science Challenge. I'll talk about those things a little bit later. So before I start talking about technical things, I'll talk about projections and predictions of change. I wanted to talk a little bit about the IPCC, which is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and I wanted to identify a few things that might be useful for people to understand. So the IPCC was established to provide decision makers and other interested parties with an objective source of information about climate change research in general. Its role is to assess on a comprehensive, objective, open and transparent basis the latest scientific, technical and socio-economic literature. So it's not all about science, it's about technologies, and it's also about understanding how social and economic effects can affect emission pathways, so how greenhouse gases might change based on whether we decide to be clean and green or whether we decide to go on somewhat similar to today. So I wanted to identify that. I'm hoping you can see the little laser. So I'm going to talk about the Working Group 1 information from IPCC, which is the physical science basis in the bit that I understand. There are many other people that have a greater understanding of the other areas, and I'm hoping that the follow-on speakers may talk about those areas after me. But I'm going to talk about vaguely what I know about. I'd just like to identify this extremely complicated graphic to show that the IPCC is an organisation that produces consensus. Okay? So this is the process that has to be gone through to convert scientific knowledge from, or knowledge in general from the peer-reviewed literature into information that goes into an IPCC assessment report. So scientists are involved in that and edit and produce those reports, but there are opportunities for non-specialists to be involved in the review process, and anybody in the world with some set of qualifications can put in inputs to IPCC. There's also government input at many stages. So, for instance, Gerald Meal, a famous climate scientist, he talked about the last IPCC fifth assessment report, and they had a week to look through it and to identify the summary for policymakers, and they got representatives from all the countries that input to IPCC, scientists, government people, and they spent 4 days arguing about the third sentence because Saudi Arabia wanted to have a certain word taken out. So there's a long process for these things. So IPCC is a consensus organisation. Given that hundreds of scientists, the hundreds of government officials that are involved, it can't produce anything other than something that is quite a conservative idea about what's happening in the future. So I just wanted to make that point. So before I start talking about predictions and projections of the future, I wanted to tell you what's happening